Hello teacher, my name is Fabiana. In this video, I will consider the consonants of American English. I will introduce to the International Phonetic Alphabet. First of all, we can say that linguistics describe consonant phonemes using three features of their articulations. The first is place, where in the vocal tract a phoneme is introduced. Manner, the way in which it's produced, and voicing, whether or not the vocal folds are vibrating. All vowels are voiced, but consonant can be voiced or voiceless. Okay, let's begin our chart with the grids or lines. We can label the columns and rows according to the three features of consonants productions. So place of articulations, manner of articulations, and voicing. The place of articulations for consonants is the spot at which we constrict the vocal tract in some way from left to right in this chart. I go from the lips back to the vocal folds where the vibration of voicing are produced. Our first column indicates the lips has the place where these consonants are produced and is labeled by labial, maybe dentals or next. This is where the lips and teeth meet to form sounds. Next is interdental. This involves placing the tones on the upper teeth. Next is the alveolar. The alveolar ridge is what you can feel with your tongue just behind your teeth. But before the palatal, next is the palatal area. And then the velar area, which is the back portion of the roof of your mouth. And finally, the glottal area is where voicing occurs. This is right at the vocal folds. The rows indicate the manner of articulation or the way that you produce the sounds. So stop fricatives, affricates, nasals, the liquids, lateral and retroflex, and the glits. And finally, voicing is indicated by the shading of each column. Many speech sounds have both voice and voiceless version. The shades portion of the right indicates voice consonants, while the non-shade area to the left indicates voiceless consonants. And now that we be construct our table, let's go ahead and look at the EPAD symbols for the consonant phonemes in American English. And the two specific allophones that I chose are the following, and I could teach them in the following way. First of all, the American English sounds allophones includes the following first common allophones. Remain and regularly aspirate sounds, be pronounced like a quick th, and also called an alveolar top. So number 3, it becomes a glottal stop, and number 4 have no sounds at all. So we can see Pattern number 1. Sounds. Its beginning. It is a regular aspirate sounds when it is the first sounds of a word or a stressed syllable. Does not fit into how we can say in the pattern 2 or 4. These rules average all other sounds alphonse rules belongs. So these sounds t beginning of a word and beginning of a stressed syllable. For example, attach and pretend. Yes. And the number 2 is quick sound. This sounds is between vowel sounds, R sounds included all R controlled vowels, and syllabic sounds. This sounds becomes voice and is produced like a quick sounds when it is occurs in the middle of a word after a vowel sounds or sounds including all R controlled vowels. And before a vowel sounds, R sounds included all R controlled vowels or a syllabic sounds. For example, we can see some examples: data and computer. Okay, the pattern number 3, the glottal stop. The letter T is pronounced as a glottal stop. The sound in the middle of a word when it follow a vowel, N sounds or R sounds including all R controlled vowels, and is followed by an N sounds. Schwa plus N sounds, nasal sounds or non-syllabic sounds. For example, pattern and ten. And finally, the pattern form omitted between vowel sounds, N sounds or nasal sounds. The letter T is optionally omitted. With this follows a nasal sounds and precedes a vowel sounds or R sounds includes all R controlled vowels or a syllabic sounds. And the T omitted can be between consonant and another consonant. In addition to above instance of omitting the T sounds, it is often omitted with it occurs between two consonant sounds, except the consonant especially mentioned for the quick T sounds or an glottal stop. This is likely to occur when an S is added to a word. These T sounds alphonse varies the most widely among some native speakers, and even within a single speaker speech patterns, the T sounds is less likely to be omitted when the speaker is emphasizing the word for a reasons. Two or more consonant sounds positions. It can be a word with not intervened vowels. Each of the consonants in a cluster can be heard when the blend is sounded. And three letters sounds of the cluster, for example, the word string. If two or more consonants represent one sound, then we call that consonant diagram. And some example of those include sh or t. Consonant clusters are found most often at the beginning or end of a word. With respect to questions, I consider there are two main reasons why consonant clusters are an important things to be aware of. So consonant clusters are important for early readers. Learning to decode a series of consonants can be tried for young children because it is harder to distinguish between the two or more individual sounds or singular consonants when separated by vowels are much easier to read and spell. For example, when a children might trip up when they encourage a new string of consonant to sound out, they can trip up. This is why it is a good idea for them to be aware of what consonant clusters are. We respect the word endings. In English, some grammatical word endings are pronounced in more than one way depending on the sounds that come before them. First, let's look at the pronunciation of the endings ed and s. The pronunciation of ed endings and s, the ed endings is added to regular verbs to show the past tense and past participle forms. The base verbs ends in t or t add an extra syllables. The verb ends in any voice sounds except d, adds voice ending t. The verbs ends in any voiceless sounds except the sound t, adds voiceless ending t. Pronunciations of s endings can be used in 4 different ways. It can be added to regular nouns to make the plural forms, for example, box, boxes, pen, pens. It can be added to all nouns, both regular and irregulars, to make a possessive forms, either singular or plural. So, for example, boy, boys, books, boys, books. So, elephant, elephants, trunk. It can be added to verbs to make the third person singular present tense, for example, kiss, kisses, round, rounds. The word ends in s, sh, ch, and ch or j. The sounds that are similar to s, called sibilant sounds, add an extra syllables s or is. The words ends in any voice sounds except the ones listed above, add a voice ending s. The word ends in any voiceless sounds except the ones listed above, add a voiceless ending s. There are some adjectives that end in ed. The pronunciation of the past tense or past participle verb ending it. The past participle term adjectives that end in ed, the verb's form is pronouncing according to the regular rules. So it can be a noun followed by ed. Most of these are also pronounced with an extra syllable, it or ed. For example, a croquet, a crooked line. And finally, it can be pronunciations of ing verbs endings. The ing endings is pronounced careful. It sounds like in.